Missouri, Mrs. Hartzler, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today in support of an important bill that could help so many families with loved ones struggling with life-threatening diseases. I'm talking about the Right to Try Act, which would allow terminally ill patients to request access to experimental drugs after all other available treatment options have been exhausted, as well as prevent the federal government from interfering with states that have already passed such laws. While Missouri passed a right to try law in 2014, I was reminded of the importance of this bill just last year. As I was returning to my office one morning after votes on the House floor, I was stopped by a little boy, Zach Mangello, who ran after me to catch my attention. Zach, who is only 11 years old, is one of the most effective advocates for the Right to Try campaign. His father, Frank, was diagnosed with ALS a few years ago. This devastating disease has an average life expectancy of 2 to 5 years, with half of those diagnosed surviving for only 3 years. Ever since that life-changing diagnosis, Zach's family, including his mother and 5 siblings, have been doing all they can to assure passage of this important bill. When Zach came running up to me that day last year, his message was clear and powerful. "My dad is dying," he said. "Please help." I was incredibly moved by this, as I think anyone would be. This little boy, and here's his picture, it's precious. This little boy, whose family is dealing with the unimaginable, convinced me and numerous other legislators of the urgency of this legislation. We must act now. I want Congress to help Zach's family and other families who have no other options. Washington should not stand in the way of Americans with life-ending illnesses who want to try to save themselves and have no other available options. That's why I'm a proud co-sponsor of the Right to Try Act and was glad to see the Senate pass their version of this bill. It is now time for the House to act, and I call on my colleagues to support this potentially life-saving legislation. Please join me so that we can give families like Zach's more options and hopefully more time. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back.